Hello, my friends. This guy over here, whose lawyer is currently giving him the stink eye, is Ramsay. And he's what I like to call an Eddie Haskell. If you don't know who that is, back in the 1950s, there was a show called Leave It to Beaver, and there was a character named Eddie Haskell. And when there was an authority figure around, like a teacher or parent, he was always very polite and sweet, but once the adults would leave, he would show his true colors, and it turns out he was a bully and just kind of a jerk. And that's what we're going to be dealing with here. But the authority figure in this case is Judge Boyd. Ramsay shows his anger issues by saying some pretty vile stuff to his probation officer, but then also shows his lack of common sense by sending even more vile things to Judge Boyd's staff through email, so putting it in writing. And if you are familiar with Judge Boyd at all, you know she is not going to put up with that, so it will definitely be used against them. And the stink eye from the lawyer is going to be a recurring thing throughout this video because he's going to do his very best to try to help Ramsay, and Ramsay is going to make it as hard as possible. So let's take a look. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks. So we start at his first trial where he pleads no contest to what ends up being theft of services between $2,500 and $30,000. I'm not sure what it was, but he's hoping to get deferred adjudication or like probation.
You understand you're charged with theft of service as a state jail felony. Range of punishment is anywhere from 180 days up to 2 years in the state jail facility and up to a $10,000 fine. You understand if the court were to grant your application for deferred adjudication, if for any reason your deferred adjudication were revoked, the court could find you guilty and sentence you up to 2 years in the state jail facility and up to a $10,000 fine.
So they're basically saying we're going to let you skip out on jail. You can live your life as normal, but you just got to be on your best behavior. And if you screw up, then the original sentence of going to jail for 2 years is then on the table. So all he has to do is just mind his P's and Q's, but he can't.
All right, the court will sentence you to 3 years deferred adjudication. There's to be regular reporting by Zoom or in person, regular random UAs. Are you employed?
Yes, ma'am.
What do you do?
Some cards.
All right, proof of employment within 30 days. There's to be no employment as a home health care provider or with minors. Field visits 1 time per month for 3 months. 200 hours of community service restitution. Do you have any children?
No, ma'am.
Is there any mental health issues or anything of that nature?
Yeah.
Again, all pretty straightforward. All he has to do is be on his best behavior. So let's see how that goes. We are now 4 months later, as you can see, and his deferred adjudication is about to be revoked. I wonder why.
All right, the court is calling 2024 CR 3624, State versus Ramsay Ibrahim. And are you Mr. Ibrahim?
Yes, ma'am, I am.
For the offense of theft of service, $2,500 to $30,000 on December 3rd, 2024 for a period of 3 years. Is that you?
Yes, ma'am, it is.
All right, state.
On or about the 10th day of February 2025 in Bexar County, Texas, the defendant Ramsay Ibrahim did then and there fail to conduct himself in a proper and orderly manner when reporting to the supervision officer at the Bexar County Community Supervision and Corrections Department.
So now we've learned that his theft of service was at least $2,500. So, I mean, we're talking pretty big money. And then on top of that, now we know his revocation is because he wasn't acting properly whenever he was reporting to his probation officer, basically. And watch him as we go over all this, because he's making this really sad face and he's trying to make himself look as remorseful and submissive as possible. But he's a very different person when he's either angry or, I think, when he's around people that he thinks are beneath him.
How do you plead to that, true or not true?
It's unfortunately true.
I'm sorry, I can't hear.
It's true.
True? All right.
State waives the remaining violation allegations, Judge.
No objections.
Did you understand by pleading true to violation of condition number 4, the court could find it true, grant the motion, find you guilty, sentence you up to 2 years in the state jail facility and up to $10,000 fine?
Yes, ma'am.
Knowing that, do you still wish to plead true to violation of condition number 4?
Yes, ma'am.
Court will find violation of condition number 4 true. Is there a proposed agreement?
No, Judge.
State, what are you requesting?
Adjudicate guilt, revoke supervision, assess punishment of 2 years confinement in the state jail facility.
So the state there is just saying that they want his deferred adjudication revoked and for him to go to jail for 2 years.
And defense, what are you requesting?
Judge, we're requesting my client be given another opportunity and allowed to continue his probation.
So knowing what he did, and we're going to hear a little bit of that in a minute because Judge Boyd is going to read one of the emails, so we won't hear everything, but it'll be enough, and it is not great. And looking back at this, I'm actually really surprised that his lawyer didn't mention like anger management classes or something, because at this point she's basically asking, is there some kind of compromise you want to make? And he's like, nope, we just want no consequences at all.
My client would like to address the court.
So after the incident happened, I came to court and I was found, guilty of the.
You pled no contest.
Pled no
and you were
contest.
placed on probation.
Well, after that incident, I lost my job, and then I've been seeing a therapist, a psychiatrist. Before all of this, I've had pretty severe depression and anxiety.
Judge, may I talk to my client for just a moment?
So this is the beginning of his lawyer trying everything he can to help his client. And bless his heart, he sure tries, but Ramsay does not make it easy. And it's clear Ramsay is just trying to get sympathy. He's trying to figure out a way to obfuscate and to make excuses. And the lawyer knows that Judge Boyd does not put up with that, right? She's going to get to the bottom of it. Now, that's not to say mental health isn't a serious issue. It is, but this guy still needs to be held accountable for his actions. And you will find throughout this, he spends a lot of time trying to explain away his behavior rather than take accountability for it.
There's no justifying the attitude that I had through the things that I
All
said.
right, so what happened?
I lashed out by
How?
just not. I used a lot of. I was cursing, but not the officer at the situation. I was just.
Any
venting.
objections to the court review and the court summary?
If my client could be allowed to apologize.
So if you didn't catch that, he is trying to beat around the bush, right? He's trying to say, I made some mistakes, I said some stuff. And Judge Boyd, again, isn't going to let you get away with that. So she's like, I want specifics. So she's like, any objection to me actually reading what happened? And the lawyer's like, I mean, could he just apologize? We could just skip that part. And Ramsay doesn't want them to read it. So yeah, no, this is not going to go well.
Or the court reviews the court summary.
No, I want to review the court summary because then I can have more information about what's going on because he's not telling me everything.
I wrote an email one night. I wrote an email.
No. Any objections to the court review and the court summary?
No, Your Honor.
No.
I approached Judge, and
Yes.
you don't already have a copy.
It's sent by email. So since defense counsel doesn't have any objections, I am going to open the court summary and let me read it and then I'll let you continue.
I just love the lawyer looks so defeated. She said, are there any objections? And he goes, no, Your Honor. Almost like, whatever.
All right.
Does my client to be allowed to continue?
Yes.
First and foremost, I apologize so much, so sincerely for the outrageous stuff that I said. I was in a really low spot,
But according to the court summary, and let me explain something to everybody. I understand that people sometimes they're angry at their situation. Sometimes they don't want to accept responsibility for their situation. I understand that, right? So, but according to the court summary, they're saying that this isn't the first time that they've had an issue with you.
and that's basically the only notable time that we're.
Well, no, not only notable time. I'm just telling you what they say. This is what it says. It says, this is not an isolated incident. He has consistently exhibited defiance towards his probation officer and field officers, refusing to comply with basic probation requirements and making it clear that he has no intention of changing his behavior.
So the whole time she's talking about the email, he really wants to speak. He's fidgeting. He's kind of trying to butt in every once in a while. And it's because that's the way bullies behave, and narcissists too. They behave however they want. They treat people however they want. And then whenever there are going to be consequences, they're convinced that all they need to do is just explain it, right? If you just listen, you'll understand why I did what I did. But his lawyer understands that it doesn't matter. Nobody cares why you did what you did. You just behaved like a maniac, and it doesn't matter why. So all they want to hear is just, I'm sorry, I'll never do it again. But throughout this, he will be convinced that he can explain it away.
That's before the letter. That's what that seems to imply to me, that this isn't the first time. So they have the letter, and they're saying that when field visits are conducted, it's the same,
Ma'am,
similar things.
okay, no, so like, again, I'm very, very sorry. And this won't happen again, but as far as the field visits were concerned, I was thrown into agitation when the officer came in.
All right, so he says, I'm so sorry, it won't happen again, but I was thrown into agitation when the officer, whatever, and the lawyer is like, dude, shut up. So on one hand, he's saying, I'm sorry, but then the very next breath, he says, it was the officer's fault. They made me mad, and what do you expect me to do? Not cuss them out?
I was thrown into agitation when the officer came in.
No,
Hold on.
it's fine. I'm just trying to figure out what's
I
happening.
understand, Judge. What my client is saying is that before this motion to revoke was filed, before he came and talked to me, I don't think he really had a full understanding of what he was looking at and what the court may end up doing today. After I talked to him, and after I really informed him of what he was looking at and what the court might do, and after hearing Mr. Edelman say what they're requesting, I think you can see my client's attitude has shifted.
I'm not sure that's the best defense right here, because he's basically saying he didn't care about what he did and he didn't want to apologize until he realized he might go to jail, and now he's going to act like he's really sorry. You know, you can see his attitude has shifted because he might actually get in real trouble.
What Ramsay was talking about, Judge, is he had a bad attitude. He just played true to a condition that I've kind of never seen on an NCR before, of just not fail to report, not the rest of it, but fail to conduct himself in a properly and orderly manner. He's pled true to that. He's accepted responsibility for that, and he has promised that he's going to make a change. I think that since I have had the opportunity to talk to him about realistically what he's looking at, should he not, in the rest of his 3 years of probation and the conviction and the 2 years day for day, that his attitude has shifted in a remarkable way.
I mean, sorry, it's kind of too little too late. They told him exactly what he was up against when he got the deferred adjudication. They were like, you've got to be on your best behavior. And I would assume most of us would understand that means maybe don't cuss out your probation officer and send threats to the judge's staff. You know, pretty basic stuff.
He's willing to apologize to each one of those officers if he's offended, apologize to the court, apologize to the prosecutor if need be. I just want to make sure that the court understands and sees his change in attitude. That's why we're here, is his attitude is poor. Was.
I sincerely need my apology.
All right, so my question is, I'm back to my question. So it's stated in the court summary, this is not an isolated incident. So when they say it's not an isolated incident, I'm taking that to mean the email that you sent, right? So let's not even talk about the email. So they're saying you have consistently exhibited defiance towards his probation officer and field officers. And the field officers are the people that go out to see you, because I require that their field visits. And actually, your probation, I don't do cookie cutter probations. Your attorney will tell you that.
That's true.
Your probation that I gave to you, in the big scheme of things, the conditions that I've given people, it wasn't that much. You didn't even have restitution to pay because I guess people received their items.
Sure.
But you were only 3 years deferred adjudication, regular reporting by Zoom or in person, regular random UAs, proof of employment within 30 days, field visits one time for 3 months.
He had a pretty easy probation, all things considered. And it seems like they're sort of hanging their hat on the defense of, I mean, yeah, but now that he knows he might go to jail, he's very sorry, you know? And to me, it sounds like the lawyer is sort of implying that when the judge said you need to be on your best behavior, you know, she didn't specifically mention not being defiant and cussing out your officer. So, I mean, how is he supposed to know he can't do that?
And 200 hours of community service restitution and theft course. That's all.
Just a second.
Yes.
Sorry, Judge. What my client is concerned about is that yesterday
Mhm.
he made a payment to pay off his community service hours.
Okay. Oh, no, that's fine.
Again, that's what he's trying to say. And you're looking for a job.
And the restitution, I think.
You paid the restitution in full before the plea judge.
Yes.
That was part of, as a plea bargain, he did pay the restitution up front. That's why it's not a probation condition. So, and again, in this past week, I want to make sure I got it. He has registered for the theft class. He has paid his community service hours off in full. He has reported here today. He has apologized for his behavior. I think that in the past week since this MTR was issued, he's gotten the message.
All right. And how old are you? 40. Okay.
That's exactly what I was about to ask. He acted like a child and cussed out his officer and then sent nasty messages and threats to the judge's staff. And his lawyer's like, I mean, now he understands that that's bad. He should have known that. That shouldn't have needed to be specified, you know?
All right. Is there anything else?
I want to give you one opportunity, just sure what we talked about. Go ahead and address the court.
Yes, I'd like just to reiterate, I mean, I am immensely sorry for having offended everyone that had, you know, spoken ill of. And the attitude, I mean, you're going to see a complete difference of everything going forward. If you just please give consideration to allowing me to just get back on track, and I'll make good on the conditions. I absolutely will. I was just frustrated with the situation, and I lashed out.
All right. So let me explain something to you. So now let's get to the letter that you wrote. It takes a lot to send an email to somebody. And what you said is, I'm literally cast aside and blacklisted on the same level as effing rapists, pedophiles, and effing real felons. You're in felony court. Sometimes people think that, oh, I'm not like other people who are charged with crimes. And then you say, I hope a prison convict breaks out, rampage, rapes all the aforementioned, and give them AIDS. It takes a lot of anger to write that and to send it.
I mean, it's one thing to lash out in anger, like you said, and just let something like that slip out of your mouth. It would still be awful, and it would still show that you're capable of something like that. But to type it to the judge's staff and then hit send, I don't know how you get to the point where you get that angry, where you can type something that awful and then send it, knowing who's going to read it. And it takes a little audacity for the lawyer to say, and now he understands how bad it is because there are consequences involved. And in a case like this, it's not necessarily what he said, it's that he's capable of saying it. You know, that's the bigger problem in a lot of cases. It's not always just that you did the thing, but it's that you're capable of doing that thing, where many people aren't. And if you happen to be saying, you know, I can see myself getting that angry and accidentally saying something like that, you might want to talk to someone, like a professional, you know?
It takes a lot of anger to write that and to send it.
So after I got this recent denial from a prospective employer. This
And that
one,
was sent on March 26, 2025.
there's
His lawyer's like, shut up. Don't blame this on anything. Just take responsibility. But again, he was trying to shift blame. It was, I lost my job. That's why I was angry enough to say some of this vile stuff.
justifying that level of right. I mean, I, I'm embarrassed to even having it here. And it was at my lowest point. And there's no, yes, I was angry.
Oh, State, you may continue. You're excused. You may continue to confer.
Thank you.
Yes, but I mean, I'm telling you, that was at a point like just ultimate low. And excuses. There's not an excuse. There's just a sincere regret.
Judge, my client would like the opportunity, if he's allowed to continue his probation, to apologize individually to each one of those people.
It doesn't have quite as much sincerity when your lawyer is having to say he really wants to apologize to everybody that he hurt. Ramsay's not saying that, his lawyer is. But Ramsay really, really wants to explain. And to him, it feels like this is important information. Knowing that I was at my lowest point is important information, so you don't think that this is who I normally am. But again, his lawyer understands that is not what the judge wants to hear. The judge wants to hear, I'm sorry, and then stop talking. And that's why he said, no excuses. Ramsay says it's not an excuse. That's because to him, it doesn't feel like an excuse.
I think that the court can see his sincere level of apology and wanting another chance.
He did sign his letter, yours truly. I think there should have been another thing other than yours truly, maybe with regards or something.
Honestly, the email that he sent, he probably should have signed off, go f yourself. And of course, the lawyer says, I think the court can see his sincere level of apology. I don't think anybody sees that. We all see somebody making excuses and panicking because they're about to receive actual consequences for their actions.
I understand the officer's requesting revocation, correct?
That is correct.
All right, thank you.
And if I could, Judge, I understand why the officer would recommend that after reading those emails. Again, I would ask for the courses. I would ask that the court allow my client to issue a full apology, email, handwritten, or in person, however the court wants to do that. If my client is allowed to apologize,
I'll do all of the above.
he is taking this quite seriously now after our conversation. Whatever the court would like to do, we'd ask that he be continued.
All right, this is what the court is going to do. The court is finding violation of condition number 4 true. The court is going to find you guilty. The court is going to revoke, sentence you to 2 years in the state jail facility, give you credit for any time served, and the court will retain jurisdiction.
Thank you, Your Honor.
And you can explain to your client what that means.
So yeah, she brought the hammer down. And keep in mind, he's not going to jail because of the things he said to the officer or the staff. He's going to jail for theft of service between $2,500 and $30,000, which is a pretty substantial amount of money. It's not like he walked out on a restaurant check or something, but he was given an opportunity to skip jail. And all he had to do was be on his best behavior. And it's pretty obvious that he thought as long as he did, the actions that were required of him, like the UAs and the restitution and community services, that he could behave however he wanted. He could treat people however he wanted. Further evidenced by the fact that the lawyer just flat out said, you've noticed that once my client figured out what's at stake, his attitude shifted. And I think there are 3 ways he could have gone through this trial and ended up not going to jail at the end. Number 1 is obviously don't be an asshole to begin with, right? Don't send threats and cuss out the officer. I mean, that's the easiest. Number 2, if this had just been an isolated incident, I think Judge Boyd might have understood, right? He could use the excuse that his anger got the best of him and he just said something he didn't mean in the moment. But it was a pattern of behavior. We have at least 2 incidents, the one with the officer and then the email, and then her staff said that this was a recurring thing. So it was probably almost every time they dealt with them, they had to deal with this kind of terrible behavior. So the excuse of I lost my temper just doesn't fly. And 3, if he had actually taken full responsibility and not tried to shift the blame. Because even when he said he wasn't making excuses, he was making excuses. And again, that is not what Judge Boyd wants to hear. She wants you to say, I'm sorry, I made terrible decisions, it won't happen again, that kind of thing. Judge Boyd sees through excuse making and stuff like that. And I think what Ramsay needs is probably some anger management, because if you can fly off the handle towards people who kind of hold your fate in their hand, either you are not bright enough to understand that, or your anger is so out of control, you have such a temper that you need to figure out a way to keep that from affecting your life, because it clearly has at this point. So hopefully when he gets out of jail, he will have learned how to control his temper so that it doesn't affect his life going forward. Hopefully we won't see him in another video like this, but I guess we'll see. I appreciate you guys so much. I'll see you in the next one. Take care.